Max Verstappen dominated the Miami Grand Prix for the second year in a row, leading home yet another Red Bull 1-2.
Outstanding performance for the reigning world champion. Max Verstappen comes out of the final corners. Max Verstappen wins the Miami Grand Prix with a masterclass of performance. 9th on the grid to the top step of the podium.
I call that simply lovely.
Looked like a near perfect race for you, Max. P9 to P1. Of all your victories in Formula One, where does this one rank?
Yeah, it's been a good one. I mean, just really staying out of trouble in the beginning because, of course, the people around me, they try to gain positions as quickly as possible on that one. But knowing that, of course, you have a quick car, then, once it all settles down, you just try to pick them off one by one. Once I was in clean air, it was just about getting to that lap number we targeted. But then as soon as I was getting close to the number, I was like, okay, this is good. So then I started pushing, could extend the gap again, which really made my race today, I think, because once we pitted, of course, then I had the fresher tires to the end. So, then I had a good battle with Checo. I mean, we were free to race, which was said before. And, of course, most importantly is that we don't touch, but that all worked out really well.
Welcome, everybody, to F1 Nation with our debrief of the Miami Grand Prix. You're joining me, Tom Clarkson, Pedro de la Rosa and Erik van Haren from De Telegraaf in Holland to have a look back on what has been a phenomenal weekend for Formula One in Miami. The event itself has been fantastic and the race had so much going on from start to finish. It was a thriller, and in no particular order, we're joined by Red Bull team principal Christian Horner, George Russell, Lando Norris, Alpine team principal Otmar Safnauer and Ferrari star Carlos Sainz. I hope you enjoy the show. Now, Erik, of all Max Verstappen's victories in Formula One, all 38 of them, I can't think of a more convincing one than what we saw today in Miami.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I think, do we have to ask ourselves the question, are we surprised by that? Of course, Checo, his teammate, was on pole, very dominant car, but history repeats itself a bit, because if Max has a difficult weekend like last weekend in Baku, of course he was second on Sunday, but it was quite a difficult, frustrating weekend for him. But this weekend he was so quick. And of course he made a mistake on Saturday, so he had to go from P9. But I think we have to be happy with that, because otherwise it would be a very boring race here in Miami. So I'm not surprised. I think Red Bull was really happy that they had a clean fight, him and Checo. But Max was just flying the whole weekend. And I think it's a signal as well. Like people said maybe after Baku, okay, Checo is the king of the streets, which he is maybe, but this is also a street track. And then, of course, we go now to Imola. Later we have Austria, we have Silverstone, Barcelona, Hungary. I think that are tracks that more likely to Max. So I think he made a good step today.
Erik, let's wind the clock back to when we all arrived here, a little bit jet-lagged on Thursday. What sort of a mood was Max in after what he'd been through in Baku? Did he see this race as vitally important to get his championship campaign back on track, if you like?
He didn't say that out loud, but if you know him a little bit, of course, after what I said, after a frustrating weekend, always he's the next week or the next 2 weeks later, he's pushing more, it seems. Maybe as a driver, if you already want to have perfection, that's not possible, but that's the feeling I have. And on Thursday, he was, of course, he's always relaxed on Thursday, but he was quite calm. He didn't want to say anything more about the thing happened with George last week in Baku, so that was clever for him to not bring that up again.
Did you ask him?
Of course I did. That's my job, but I think he did well. And also I asked him what he think about being booed, and because on social media I got a lot of criticism after the Russell incident in Baku, after the sprint race, and also today.
Even in Holland?
Yeah, people as well, because they think on the board radio he is complaining a lot. But again, history repeats itself, because Hamilton did it as well, Vettel did it as well, Schumacher did it as well. If you're leading, people are fighting you more hard. So that was a good quote he said in the press conference with you. He said that I'd rather to be with my trophy on the top here, and that people who criticize me are going home with nothing. He said it a little bit different, but that was more or less what he said. And I think that's nice. Of course, you can agree with him or disagree with him, but he always stand up for himself. He always give his honest opinion. In the years I'm following, he never lied to me. So that if you're a journalist, that's the best thing you have. And I think without Max Verstappen, it will be quite boring, on and off the track.
So he was calm and composed when he arrived here in the US. Was he still feeling that way after qualifying when he made that mistake on his first run of Q3 and wasn't able to get the job done?
Yeah, what I liked was that he was complaining about himself. He made a mistake, and then of course he had bad luck with Charles crashing and not going up for a second lap. But it was really easy for him to say, okay, Charles, I didn't go for my second run because of the red flag. No, he said, I messed up the first lap, so it was my mistake. So that was a good sign, and I think he said already minimum realistic goal for Sunday is P2, but I think in the back of his head was only the victory.
And do you think he sees Checo as a genuine threat this year?
Yes, because he's the only threat. I think he has the confidence that he is a better driver, especially a more consistent driver, 23 races, but you have seen in 16 with Rosberg, Hamilton, you can have bad luck, you can have some DNFs, and then your teammate can believe in it as well. And it's only 14 points, of course it's only 5 races we had, but only 14 points, so a lot can still happen. But I think Max is confident enough that he thinks, okay, consistent long term, I'm a better driver. I think he thinks that way.
We both know the characters of these guys, don't we? Do we think it's going to get, not nasty, that's the wrong word, but do we think it could get a little bit tense between them, or do you think they will race with respect throughout the year?
They are racing drivers, so you can have a fight on your hands. So of course it will be tense sometimes, but it's more. It's maybe a question if it's tense, if you are going to have peace immediately after or a week after. So of course it can be tense. We saw it last year already when Max was already champion. So it can always be. But I think now they have respect for each other, and you saw it today. They fight with respect, but I have to say Max was an advantage with fresher tires, and it was not a real fight, right?
It didn't feel like a real fight, did it? You know, Checo's tires were what, 20 plus laps?
Yeah. So of course he tried and he defended and he didn't let Max pass right away, but it was not a real fight.
Another thing that came across, I thought, in the post-race press conference was the affection that Max has for his father Jos, and Jos has won a rally this weekend. There's been a double victory for the Verstappens. Do you sense their relationship is great? And how much does Max rely on his dad? So when Max is here without him, do you feel that, I don't know, without his wingman, he feels incomplete somehow? Or
no, maybe a few years ago, but now Jos is not. I think this year he was only in Jeddah so far. So, and they call every day, they text every day, so they have a lot of contact. But sometimes if Jos is here, of course, sometimes the whole day, Max is so busy, they don't see each other all day. Jos is only in the hospitality talking with people. But I think sometimes it helps when he is here. But Max is so matured now, he don't need his father all the time with him. But I think he still is number one wingman, if you would like to say it that way.
Perez shows him the outside line, but there'll be better traction for Max Verstappen, who stands on the throttle. He'll get DRS again. We'll fight it to turn one. Can Perez offer a defensive line to the inside? He's got no other choice. The ball's wheel to wheel, and round the outside. Will it be the lead? It's close between the two of them. The crowd are roaring, and Max Verstappen takes the lead of the Miami Grand Prix, having started 9th on the grid. He's passed his teammate. He's passed all of them.
let's get the thoughts of Red Bull team principal Christian Horner. Christian, thanks for your time. They didn't touch and it was a 1-2, but were you nervous?
Well, look, we discussed it this morning. I said, look, guys, you're free to race, but keep it clean and just give each other respect and respect the team. And all the time that you do that, we'll let you race. And I thought they did exactly that today. They were firm, but they were very fair with each other and showed respect to each other and the team.
Now, were you surprised by the medium tyre today? I mean, did you even think of starting Checo on the hard?
No. The medium tyre, statistically, from all our simulations, showed that it was a better outcome race-wise. And I think Max pushed very hard to run the hard tyre with his engineering team. And statistically, it looked like it was a less preferential race in terms of race time. But I think the way Max was able to make that hard tyre work from lap 20 to 42 was truly outstanding. And that was what really won him that race.
And after such a strong weekend in Baku for Checo, what sort of response is this from Max?
Max left Baku, I think, feeling, he obviously didn't enjoy, Checo was the quicker driver that weekend, and obviously had a huge weekend. And I think he was very keen to come here and reassert himself. And I mean, when you look back at that middle section of the race, that was an impressive performance, and both guys just going hard at it against the stopwatch.
Christian, if I may, you have such an advantage on the Sundays especially. Do you think teams like Mercedes, who of course say we have a big update in Imola, can close on to you guys, or is the advantage just too big?
I don't know. I mean, it's still a long season, and they've got a lot of development time available to them. So, I mean, let's see. I mean, I'm sure I keep hearing of massive upgrades for Mercedes coming and significant ones for Ferrari. So, if they do have a B-spec car, then things can change quite quickly.
But you guys are not standing still, I reckon, as well.
Of course, we have the restrictions in the development tools, imposed on us this year. But I think the team are doing a very effective, very efficient job, and they're using the time that we have effectively.
Christian, thanks for your time. Great to hear from him, and what a happy man, because that really was not only the perfect result for Red Bull, but the way it was managed, the way they fought, the way they kept it clean. It was how Christian, as the team boss, wants them to go racing this year. We live in a world that's more digital than ever, with nearly every want or need just a tap away. So stop and think about where you do most of your buying. I imagine it's likely online, because so many of our favourite items, retailers or subscriptions exist there. And the convenience of accessing these digital services, then seeing them realised in the physical world when they're delivered straight to our front door, is so appealing. So many digital services seamlessly make this transition, but you might not realise that until now, that hasn't been true for crypto. Digital currencies have been tied up online with no easy way to bring them into the real world. You couldn't physically get your hands on them, and that could be so frustrating to see a balance on screen and not be able to turn it into cash in your pocket. That's why we're so excited to share that you can now cash in and out of select digital wallets at participating MoneyGram locations without a bank credit card or debit card. Convert your digital currency to cash and back again using the only digital wallets with real cash access, activated by MoneyGram. Learn more at moneygram.com/Stellar Wallets. We're now joined by our teammate for the show today, Pedro de la Rosa. You're looking happy and relaxed because it's been a good day, hasn't it, for Aston Martin?
Hello, Tom. Hello, everyone. Well, I think it's been more than a good day. It's been a fantastic weekend. It was an up and down Saturday qualifying. I think Lance was very close to getting some points today, but we had the issue in Q1. But for me, it was a fantastic race. I mean, it was there was a lot of action going on, a lot of fights. There was the fight for the lead, I mean, it was beautiful to see Max pushing with that hard tire and Checo defending as he could, on that grain medium tire.
At what point in this race did you go, okay, Max has got this?
There was a point towards, maybe 15 laps to the end, when Max was pulling fastest laps at one point, personal fastest laps, and you could see that Checo could not respond with a fresher set of hard tires. Then you realize it's game over.
Even with the medium tyre not performing today?
The thing is, I think that the medium tyre proved to be very, very fragile. So at the beginning of the race, Checo did not really pull the gap needed to manage after that. And the fact that it was a difficult tire, Fernando struggled with the medium as well at one point, with Sainz putting a lot of pressure. Sainz was always in the DRS zone, so Fernando could not really manage that medium tire. And it was opening up. Many drivers were having front graining, rear graining.
Eric, can I throw that to you? At what point did you think Max has got this?
Well, Fernando said before the race, yesterday after qualifying, he said, I think Max is with me in lap 25, and it was already lap 15. And normally Fernando is quite right with his predictions like this. So that was the first thing. And then I saw in the hard tire, he had I think around lap 20 or something, he was struggling a bit, Max, and Checo was pushing on the fresh tire. So then I think maybe it will be difficult, but then Max was, what Pedro said, Max was at the end of his stint, he was pushing purple laps, and that was the thing. Okay, even after his stop, he will be behind Checo on fresh medium tires, he will get him. So, and what I said before, Max was so quick all weekend. Of course, he made a mistake on Saturday, but you saw already he was quicker than everyone, also than Checo, so I'm not that surprised.
One thing Eric and I were talking about at the top of the show, Pedro, is what sort of a response is this from Max Verstappen after what happened in Baku last weekend when Checo showed him the way home?
I mean, let's look back at the weekend. I mean, I think Max has been dominating the whole weekend. He only made one mistake, which was his first lap in Q3. And then he was unfortunate about the red flag. But let's be realistic. He has been super strong all weekend on single laps, on long run pace, on the race simulations on Friday. So I haven't been that surprised that he would do it, because I didn't think Checo had that long run pace needed. He eventually made it in Q3 and did a fantastic lap, but it took him a lot of thinking, a lot of understanding what he was needing, a lot of looking at the data where Max was faster. I mean, Max was super fast looking at the data from turn 5, 6, 7, 8, all that section of the sector 1. He was unbelievably quicker than, not Checo, that everyone else, you know. And that's the difference. I think Max came back strong, but he felt like at home since lap 1 here.
Eric, I know you've got to go and start penning some words
Yeah.
for the Dutch fans of Formula One, but just let's throw it forward to Imola. We're back in Europe. Max is on a roll. What do you think his mindset is right now?
I think extending this gap, because of course we can think it was a very dominant victory, which it was, but it's only 14 points, the gap. So I think he looked forward to it, to go to Europe, not travel that long, and it's an old school track, and that's what Max really likes. Of course, he doesn't like these tracks at all. You couldn't see it in the car today, but he doesn't like maybe the car. He likes Miami, but maybe not the show here. I liked it, but maybe not.
Did you like the pre-race show?
Yeah, this is America, so, and the people loved it, and of course it's over the top. But I personally like to have the difference. Imola is way different than it will be here. It's old school. The track is very different, but I like to have some changes during the year. So I think it's great. And to go back to your first question, I think Max is really looking forward to Imola and to extend this gap. And he showed already he had some bad luck this year. So, and what I said, the gap is not that big. So I think if Checo can be P2, if Max is P1, then of course the gap will not be that big the next couple of weeks. And of course then Checo maybe can sometimes have some profit if Max has bad luck. So I think it's not decided yet, but it was only race 5, so it will be crazy if I say something different.
Eric, thank you very much. See you soon.
And Fernando Alonso looking to make it 4 podiums for the season. Another supreme performance for him as well. He's getting used to standing in 3rd place. He'll be there again in a few moments' time. Aston Martin are absolutely loving life in Formula One 2023.
P3, man, well done.
Yeah, well done, guys. A bit of a lonely race, but we take it.
So what about the rest of the show? Red Bull dominate. Fernando Alonso does what Fernando Alonso does, which is getting the maximum out of his car. He actually said he thought this was their most impressive race of the year so far. No safety cars and only 25, 26 seconds behind the Red Bulls at the flag. You agree with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he drove incredibly well. I was very impressed how he managed the medium tire at the beginning of the race, having the pressure of Carlos. Carlos Sainz was flying on the Ferrari on that tire. Then they went to the hard tire and they seemed to lose a lot of pace. But man, it's so difficult to think about the tire and have someone stuck on your gearbox opening the DRS in every straight. So it was a fantastic weekend, you know, really well managed. And also I think it was really interesting what happened on Saturday, where we were struggling in the FP3. We were trying different options, setups, and then gradually we went back to what was known, and it really worked well. But we threw a lot of new stuff, basically a lot of into qualifying. We went back on the setup, and for the drivers to get used to the setup, although it was a known setup, but on a new track, it's very difficult when you go into qualifying having no chance of fine-tuning the ride heights or the balance, mechanical balance of the car, because you are in par fermé from the start of qualifying. So I think we learned a lot. We tried a lot of things here this weekend, and we came out with plenty of points. Could have been more, but it was very interesting.
That was a good quali for the Espanols, wasn't it?
Yes, we dominated.
It's the first 1, 2, 3 Spanish-speaking grid ever, I think.
Yeah, but only grid. I mean, the next step is that we need the 3 of them in the podium, and then we could have the whole press conference in Spanish,
That won't be
No,
happening.
That won't be happening. Maybe one question though.
What about Ferrari? You mentioned Carlos Sainz there. Carlos, so good to see you get your mojo back this weekend.
Yeah, I was back with the normal standard feeling with the car and being more myself than in Baku, which shows Baku was the outlier and the more difficult weekend of the season probably, but now at least the feeling was back.
Look, what was the car like in the race? I mean, you finished P5, from P3, but are you happy with it?
No, I don't think we can be happy, especially after fighting for the podium in the first stint. We were looking to undercut Fernando. The pace was really good on the medium. We were on for a podium, and then suddenly it was put the hards on, have to go through some traffic, get some dirt in my tires, and from there the pace dropped massively, and we went back a bit to reality, which is at the moment we are not quick enough in the race, and with the harder compounds, long stints on harder compounds, we tend to struggle more than the others.
Now, were you surprised with the medium today, and the lack of performance from the medium?
I think everyone struggled, but out of everyone, I was the one who struggled the least, because I was the whole stint in the dirty of Fernando applying pressure, and actually I was about to pass him when they called us in, but I felt like I had plenty of pace in that tire for some reason.
Are you enjoying these fights with Fernando this year? You seem to be arguing over the same bit of tarmac most races.
No, because I'm always feel like I'm looking in the mirror more than... It is true that normally the Ferrari tends to qualify a bit better than the Aston, but the Aston in the race is faster, or Fernando in the race together with that Aston, they are very, very competitive, which means they have better tire management, and I tend to always have to defend from him.
All right, look, have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Pedro, having had a really difficult weekend in Baku, I think he seemed to get his mojo back this weekend. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he drove very well. Look at the problems that Charles was finding with the car, and he was really struggling at one point during the race. So it was not easy for the car didn't seem to be an easy car.
And then he gets the 5-second penalty.
Yeah, I mean, but he came into the pits like he knew, he was throwing an undercut to Fernando. He knew he had the chance, and he went into the pits like locking the front wheels and just a bit too fast. But that's what it is, You have to risk it sometimes. He was fighting for a podium, and it didn't work out. I mean, but anyhow, I thought he drove very well. It didn't seem an easy car to drive. Leclerc had a spin yesterday, so it seemed very wind sensitive. It seems like a car when it's windy conditions, and the windy conditions seem to lose a lot of downforce and become very peaky. It seemed to be hitting the ground very much during the race, like more than any other car, especially on the rear end. It doesn't seem like an easy car to drive, or as easy as it was last year.
How difficult is it to judge your speed when you're coming into the pits?
It is.
Does 80 Ks feel very slow?
Oh, massively slow. I mean, 80 Ks is like standing still. So, but one thing that you need to understand really is that when you brake for the speed limit, it's 80 kph, but it's not. There's not a point where it's 80 kph. There is an area where it has to be. They do the average of 80. So if you know that, or you think that you have overshooted 80, you have the chance of really reducing like to 65, 70 for a while, and then picking up the speed, just to make sure that the speed limit, that you know that on that average zone, you manage to keep it safe, basically, or clear from the 80 limit. So there's some ways that if you have any doubt, just make sure you drop your speed. And but probably Carlos thought that he was safe. It's very difficult to judge, because you come from 160, 180 there. Yes, brake strong, brake hard, and sometimes you look at the speed limit, and it's like 79, 80. You think, it should be okay.
And you've got a read on the dash telling you how fast you're going, have you?
Yes, you have.
So there is only
but
one.
But you're not looking at the speed, like you're looking at the positioning the car. I mean, and it also has, in this speed entry, there is a bit of a chicane. So it's not as simple as looking at a speedometer.
And what about Charles Leclerc? All right, I am a massive fan. The pole lap that he did in Baku, I thought was completely stunning, and I'm not sure there's another driver on the grid that could have done that lap. Then you come here, and we have an error in FP3, we have an error in qualifying. What do you make of it?
There are very few drivers that are as fast as Charles. And over one lap, he throws everything at it. So
Throws too much at it?
well, I think that he's not scared of anything. I really admire Charles because he is very brave, and whenever he makes a mistake, he goes out again and pushes to the same limit. You know, he doesn't need any lap to get back into the groove or get his self-confidence back. He just goes out there and does exactly what he needs to do, push to the limit. And this is something that not many drivers can do. And that's why I think he can drive the Ferrari so well, because it doesn't look like an easy car to drive. And Carlos sometimes struggles, like in Baku. He didn't feel confident. He had a couple of lockups and he went straight into a couple of corners. And then suddenly he loses his confidence. While Charles, he doesn't really care about it. You know, he just continues doing what he's good at, which is driving the car on the knife edge.
And what did you make of his race today? I mean, he got to 7th. In fact, starts 7th, finishes 7th. I mean, it was a quiet race.
I think that, I mean, we were all expecting a bit more because look at what Max did, you know. But let's remind ourselves that Charles is not driving a Red Bull. So what Max did is stunning, it's incredible. I mean, just proves he showed us a masterclass today, but he's also driving a supercar that takes care of the tires, that is very, very complete. So I think that we were all expecting more from Leclerc, but having said that, how many drivers would have done better than him on a Ferrari today?
There's more to come from the Miami paddock in just a moment. But first, let me introduce new Heineken Silver, the global beer partner of Formula One. Heineken Silver is the low-carb, low-calorie beer with all the taste and none of the bitter endings. 3.2 grams of carbs and only 95 calories. It's a game changer, and as we know, Formula One cars are built with speed in mind. And to achieve that, teams have to use all their ingenuity to get the lightest, most stable vehicle they can make without compromising on safety and reliability. Heineken Silver has done exactly that for the beer world, creating a crisp and refreshing, lighter beer that doesn't compromise on taste. It brings all the flavour of a full-bodied beer, but none of the bitter aftertaste. You could say that with Heineken Silver, you're getting all the performance with none of the penalty. As well as developing this game-changing beer, Heineken Silver is also the title sponsor of the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix. And for our US listeners aged 21 and over, you can win a VIP experience at the race with Heineken Silver. Use the link in the episode description to enter and see the full terms and conditions. So try new Heineken Silver at the track or in stores now. All the taste, no bitter endings, 3.2 grams of carbs and 95 calories. Otmar Safnauer, the team principal of Alpine, is here. Otmar, yep, there's a smile. There's a smile. It's been a good weekend. I can say it's been a good weekend for you guys. Is there a sense of relief?
Yeah, it's better. Both in the points. If we can continue to do that throughout the year, we'll, be in a much stronger position. So yeah, it's been better, and we're not that far off here anyway. A couple of 3/10, and we would have stayed ahead of Leclerc and Lewis.
What about the upgrades that you brought to Baku last time out? You didn't get many laps, so couldn't get a read on them. Are you pleased with them? Are they a step forward?
Yeah, I mean, they're working. So we pressure tap the floor. That shows us exactly, where the downforce is coming from, and it's better.
Well done. Thank you, Otmar. Here we get a thumbs up. That is a happier team principal at Alpine. I'm guessing there has been a lot of pressure released in that race today, because I sensed it was building. Did you see before the race that on Canal Plus, the French TV broadcaster, that Laurent Rossi, the big boss there, he let rip on the team, just saying, it was amateurish, I think is how he described their performances earlier in the year, and I sensed there was a lot of pressure building up. So 8th and 9th, Gasly and Ocon is very welcome.
Yeah, and Gasly especially did a fantastic race, early on, and I think they are a team that will improve a lot in the next few races. They seem to be picking up the pace. They suddenly are very fast in some free practice sessions. Suddenly they are on top. So I'm expecting big things from Alpine.
But where in the pecking order do you see them at the minute? Have you established the pecking order in your mind? If we go Red Bull 1, Aston Martin 2, where are Alpine? They're 6th in the World Championship. Is that an accurate reflection of the pace of the car?
Well, I mean, we have to think that after us, Ferrari and Mercedes, they are the team. You know, they're the team to beat. I think that they will evolve. They have the know-how how to improve the car. Last year they did a very good work, development process during the whole season. So I'm expecting the Alpine to get strong towards the end of the season.
Now we're crossing the Dolphins pitch here, and we're making our way to Mercedes. And we've got we've got a racing driver, we've got engineers. Now, George, you were my driver of the day today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Probably most enjoyable race I've had since Brazil last year.
Well, look, can you just explain your weekend to me? So, lightning quick in FP1, the pace then seems to go away, and then you go and drive a mega race like that.
I mean, I don't have any explanations, to be honest. It's if we knew we'd be able to deliver the good performances every single session. I think F1's so challenging at the moment. The cars are so complex. When you get in a sweet spot, everything comes alive. And, we didn't do that in qualifying. We paid the price. Today was more of a normal performance, but we just need to find more overall lap time. It's as simple as that.
When you were to Carlos, did you think that you could catch Fernando? Because at that point you were flying. I mean, you were one of the fastest cars on track.
Yeah, I believed it because we're moving forward. I was pushing flat out, but I think Fernando at the time was sort of managing the tyres and had some extra performance in the pocket. So, it was a good race. Fernando's doing a really great job at the moment. Hopefully, Imola, we can be a bit closer to them. But, Red Bull are a long way ahead, and we need to sort that out and catch them up quick.
What about Imola, man? I mean, there's so much.
There's a lot of expectation around Imola, but everybody's moving forward. Everyone's bringing upgrades. For sure, we'll go a small step in the right direction. I'd like to think it can transform things, but this is Formula One. It's never that straightforward.
Have you driven the upgrades in the sim?
I have, but the sim's not reality, so I won't give any secrets away. As I said, don't expect the world to change in Imola. Red Bull are still going to be the quickest, and at the end of the day, I don't care where we are, we're chasing them and we want to beat them.
George,
Thank
well
you,
done.
George.
Travel safe. Thank you for your time.
Well, interesting.
He's really impressing me this year.
It's unbelievable. I mean, this guy is, what he's doing on a very difficult car, but not this year. I mean, last year, I was shocked. I thought that it would take him a while to get to the speed of Luis, and he was straight on a very difficult car, on a bouncy car, you remember last year, and this year again, it's incredible. I mean, how he managed to, today was a very tough race for the racing drivers. It was hot and humid, difficult, but also it was very difficult to manage the tires through the race, especially that medium of a one-stopper. So that was really impressive how he did it.
But what's really impressed me about George is his qualifying pace this year. I know he was known as Mr. Saturday when he was at Williams, but, he had, with all respect, Nicholas Latifi as his teammate. He's now got Lewis Hamilton, all right? 103 pole positions as his teammate. And he, more often than not, is out-qualifying him. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, but more importantly than out-qualifying him, I think that some races he's even faster on race pace, I mean, they are very evenly matched, and this is the beauty about these two drivers, and especially about George, because I think no one ever expected him to be this strong, this mature. Whenever he talks on the radio, he has this capability of reading the race, which not many racing drivers have. And they are the ones that make the difference at the end of the day.
He's also very polite on the radio when Lewis let him pass today.
Very British, I would say.
Yes,
very
right.
nice. It was, he was very well educated.
So George, of course, had a brilliant drive to 4th place. And we just made our way down to McLaren. And the tale of the two Brits, if we can call it that, there couldn't be greater contrast, really. George driving that great race to P4 and Lando Norris P17 after what's been a really difficult weekend for McLaren.
Yeah, they started both McLarens with the soft tire, which was a really strange tire choice, especially because everyone knew that the medium was already marginal, so imagine the soft.
Lando, we were just discussing your decision to start on the soft tire.
Yeah, I went forward 3 positions and then got taken out.
You got hit. What happened
quite
there?
a bit of damage. Nick forgot to brake, I think.
He hit you from behind it, and how did that affect the handling of the car?
Just a loss of rear, like 10 points rear downforce, which is, not insane, but it makes a big difference in the end of the day. So we wouldn't have changed our result. We wouldn't have made us quick or anything. It's just we wouldn't have been quite as slow as we were today. That's it.
You have a really positive weekend 7 days ago in Azerbaijan, right? And I felt that the team was going to make great strides forward. And then suddenly we come here and it seems the car was nowhere all weekend.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, but what conclusions have you drawn, or do you need to go back to the MTC to do that?
No, I think the conclusions, it's not that it's not clear how to improve it, it's a lot of work to improve it, a lot of time. I think it's very clear, it shows how track dependent or track characteristic biased it is. Temperature biased as well, if it was a much colder day today, our performance for sure, 100% would have been much better relative to other teams. I'm sure they would have done better, but we would have taken a bigger step. Like FP2 yesterday, on Friday, we maybe showed a little bit more pace, but even when we take that out of it, our pace was actually still not too bad. Whereas when we went into qualifying, 20-degree hotter track temp, we were shocking. So it's not like we were over the moon in Baku, we just had a better weekend and we're happy because of it. But the plan, the work, everything's still the same. It has been the whole year. We know where we're bad, where we have to improve, and just have to be patient still. As much as I don't want to be patient, we have to be patient.
Will it be better in Imola? Of course, you've had podiums there in the past.
Yes, actually, Imola's been one of my most successful tracks. Will it? I don't know. I think last year we did a very good job. I had a good qualifying as P3 or something in quali, and then P3 in the race, P4 in quali, P3 in the race, I think. So it's been a better track for us. Definitely comparing to here. Here is these long corners. These long corners like turn 6, 7, 8. I can't describe how painful it is driving this corner today. It was shocking. So Imola is generally a better track because it's a bit more like a 90-degree corners, big brake, turn, stop, go, rather than carrying a lot of minimum speed along, 180-degree corners for us are finished. We're game over.
The fact that it was so windy today, maybe it didn't help?
No, actually the wind, we spoke about this a little bit, the wind didn't affect us as much as we were expecting. It started windier, but in the end and halfway through the race, actually it was the same as yesterday. So it made a little bit of a difference, especially 6, 7, 8, a little bit more tailwind than yesterday. But by halfway through the race, it's the same as yesterday. So it will change things, but it wasn't the reason.
Thanks for your time. So what did we learn from Lando there? That the McLaren doesn't like 180-degree corners, does it?
Yeah, he was, there's the Red Bull celebration happening at the moment.
It's normally in the pit lane, the Red Bull celebration, isn't it?
Yeah, but we are in America, and we are in the middle of the Miami Dolphins Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. Yeah, I thought that Lando was extremely honest, and he was definitely downbeat. No, he was not the best of the races anyway. I mean, driving a car without, with 10 points downforce less, it's over 0.3 of a second. Which is obviously, and it's not the fact of having less downforce alone. It's just the fact that you're driving an unbalanced car. So basically, all of a sudden, you lose a lot of rear downforce, and therefore you need to pit and to make sure that you downgrade a bit the flap angle on the front just to balance that out. But it's not easy, and also the fact that they started on the soft tires would not help either with the deck that they suffered.
But I definitely felt he thought it was the right call to start on the soft, because he said he made up 3 places, and had Nick de Vries not rammed him from behind, I sense Lando thinks the result could have been different. Well, no, he said the result wouldn't be different, but maybe the performance of the car.
Well, they know much better how their car performs. I find it normally when you have problems of overheating the tires, you shouldn't go for the softest. But anyway, every team has their own tactics and their rim heating strategies, etc. So that's something for me not to judge, really.
One thing that has changed at McLaren this weekend is we saw an old face back in the team, Gilles de Ferran.
Yes.
Who was a consultant for the team, I think, in the sort of 2016 to 18 era, and he's back, working with Andrea Stella.
I remember Gilles when he was driving in Formula 3 and Formula 4, in fact, and if there was a driver, an elegant driver, fast, smooth, that always stood out, driving the Reiner normally. I mean, everyone would be on the RAL chassis, whatever, and he was the only competitive Reiner driver in Formula 3, in British F3, was Gilles. So I became a big fan of his when he was driving in the junior categories. I'm still are. Then he went into Indy and won championships and races, and he's one of those drivers that have their own style, very elegant style driving.
This episode is sponsored by NordVPN. If you're looking for a way to protect your privacy and data when you're browsing online, NordVPN has you covered. Not only can it help secure your connection at home by stopping prying eyes from seeing your online activity, it can also keep your privacy intact when you're out and about. If you've ever needed to log on to public Wi-Fi when in a bar or restaurant or even on public transport, you need to know that these networks are usually unsecured. And so anyone else using that same network can access your personal data and activity. But by installing NordVPN on your mobile laptop or tablet, you can make this a thing of the past. It's super simple to set up and easy to use, meaning all you need to do after creating your account is hit connect and you can rest assured that you're protected. You can even set up zero-click protection, which means you'll be safe to browse on any network at any time. With each account, you can protect up to 6 devices, and it's compatible with every major platform, including Windows, Android, iOS, macOS, and Linux. Even your Android TV supports NordVPN. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/F1Nation to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So we just stopped by this Red Bull family photo celebrating the 26th 1-2 in the team's history. We've got Christian Horner, Max Verstappen, Adrian Newey, Checo Perez. I can't see Helmut Marko, but the whole team is there. And I saw Jonathan Wheatley earlier, Pedro, who is sporting director and deals a lot with the FIA. And I tell you what, let's just make our way to Ferrari while I finish this story. But it's Jonathan Wheatley's birthday today, and he said, you cannot imagine, he said, how satisfying it is. There we go, that's Red Bull. How satisfying it is to put together a team and get the results that we're seeing now. He said, it's, Formula One is so hard. There's a lot of sticky
Oh dear, there's been a touchdown there.
Oh my goodness, there's been a touchdown there. There's a lot of Red Bull being sprayed in the air. Did you get any on you? No, I think we were all right. But Pedro, what it's like for a team like this, to be riding the crest of a wave. You were at McLaren when they were winning everything.
Yes, I think that everyone that has been in Formula One for a long time realize how tough it's to win. But you should always be extremely proud. And every victory, or every 1-2, like in the case of Red Bull, should be celebrated in a special manner, because you never know when the next one is going to come around.
No, hang on, I think we do with them.
Yeah, but
but I get your point. You're never sure how long it's going to last, right?
Well, we are all here to stop this winning streak. It's very nice to see the Red Bull celebrating, but deep in my heart, it's also humiliating in a way, that they continuously celebrate a 1-2. And we are not able to stop them. When I'm talking about, I'm talking the whole Formula One grid. I'm not talking only about the Aston Martin team.
I saw Adrian Newey, their chief technical officer, on the grid. It's quite difficult to see anyone on the grid here because there are just so many celebrities. A sort of tidal wave of celebrities coming down the grid. I saw Tom Cruise, Roger Federer, they were all
Tom Clarkson.
I didn't see Pedro de la Rosa. Where were you?
I was hiding.
One of the things I saw Adrian doing is that he was down at Williams and he was staring at the front wing on the Williams, and how I just found it very interesting that he's looking at all the cars for inspiration, for ideas.
Well, I always, when I look at Adrian or this great aerodynamicist of any team, because they are all bright brains, great brains, I would like to get in their head and see what they're looking at. Because when we look at a Formula One car, we look at the side pods, we look at the big things that stand out. But what are they really looking? Because the good thing about, for example, when I talk with aerodynamicists of Aston Martin is I always tell them, look, have you seen this detail of the side pod of this car or the other? And they always reply, well, that's the last thing I would ever look at, They look at details that are much more important than the big, bulky body works. So it's always fantastic to see how creative they are and what are they focusing on.
As Adrian was looking at this front wing on the Williams, Tom Cruise was walking behind him. He didn't once look round to have a look at Tom Cruise. Not impressed by any of that.
In 2005, I remember when I was driving the MP420, I was the test driver back then. And I remember in one team photo, that I was like sitting down on the side pod of the MP420. And I remember Adrian coming to me and said, don't sit down on the side pod because it will touch the ground. So he was already exploiting the aeroelasticity back then, when no one had even thought about it, not even myself. I mean, and then I realized, it's really, really soft and nice and comfortable, but it was because it was bending,
Also, you're not a heavy guy, Pedro. It must have been very flexible.
Yes. It was an area that obviously was other teams were not exploiting. Let's put it this way.
Incredibly impressive.
That's a move that's been a long time coming for Charles Leclerc to the inside of Magnussen. Magnussen relishing fighting the Ferrari, and he fights back to hold on to 7th, and Leclerc will be fuming with this.
That's it, Kev. Well done, mate. P10 1 point. We'll take that. Fantastic work.
Sorry, guys. Was hoping for a little more there, but I got it out. Sorry, man. Back in the game, though. Good pace all weekend, so let's move on.
Now look, one driver in the top 10, Pedro, that we haven't talked about is Kevin Magnussen. All right, he starts the race P4, finishes 10th. So determined. He's a racer, isn't he? He's a feisty one.
I really admire him. How he fought against Charles, against many other guys. They were just getting the elbows out. He's brave. He's not intimidated by anyone or any team, and this is the greatness of Kevin. He's a brave driver. He's not an easy driver to have a fight with, that he will push to whatever he needs to be pushed, to the end. And if he even if he's fighting for something important, that he will throw your car at you,
And what is interesting about him is that whenever a big result is in the offing, he's there for it. And I'm thinking of his pole position in Brazil last year, or the 4th place on the grid here. He seems, on the face of it, he's had a couple of difficult races this year where, he's openly admitted that he's struggled to get to grips with the car. But when the opportunity's been there, it's him getting the result.
He has the raw speed in the dry, in the wet, in the conditions. Nico is pushing him to his best. And what we saw yesterday of Kevin, I keep thinking about Jan. When I'm talking about Kevin, I sometimes going to say Jan. When I'm talking about Max, I'm going to say Josh. It just proves how old we're getting. But Kevin, definitely a super guy, a super person as well, a really nice guy.
And what do you make of the pace of Haas?
Very fast in quali, and then in the race, they don't manage to keep up that consistency. Why is that? Have no idea, but it's obviously down to tire management or, how the car treats the tires, because their qualifying pace is impressive. And this weekend, Kevin, but also Nico have been amazingly fast in many free practice sessions. They have always been at the top.
When you talk about consistency, the only teams that have actually been consistent this year are you, Aston Martin and Red Bull. Everyone else has been fluctuating from one race to the next. So it's not just Haas.
It is. It's a difficult business. After working with these bright minds in Formula One, there's many times that you come out of a weekend being slow and they don't have an answer for that. It's not that they are hiding information. It's just, it's a complex sport. And sometimes, you're expecting to be very fast at the track and then you're bloody slow. Why is that? Difficult to say, It's not 1 + 1 is 2, but you have to be consistent, and the way of being consistent is especially being good on your tires, because it doesn't really matter how quick you can be on one lap, but you need to be, lap after lap, different compounds, different type of corners. You need to be consistent and flexible as well.
Well, Pedro, it's almost time.
There's not many people around.
No, it's just
Tom.
you and me. It's getting dark. The forklift trucks are in. The freight is being packed up, sent back to Europe. But in conclusion, and let's talk bigger picture stuff here, I think this has been a fantastic weekend for Formula One, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been my first Miami Grand Prix as well, so I cannot compare against last year, but it's been fantastic. The atmosphere, the response from the spectators has been good. You know, the racing has been good. It has been, or at least it has been an interesting race where there is a clear dominant team. But the good thing is that they have Checo is in a great state and is giving a very hard time to Max. And this is important for Formula One.
And you think he won't be too downhearted after what happened today?
No, I don't think so. I think that the Checo has also his circuits. You know, and last year he didn't like this circuit. He was struggling with the new asphalt as well, or at least he claimed it was difficult for him. So I believe that he will push Max very hard in the next races. And especially on those circuits that he's quick at, you know, he's especially fast. Last year he was struggling with the Red Bull in many, especially in the high-speed corners. When you were checking his telemetry against Max, you could see that he was losing a lot on the high speed. This year he's up there. He's very, very fast in the high speed and very comparable to Max. So I think that he has made a big step. I think the Red Bull this year is a lot more drivable, easier to drive, and it's helping Checo massively.
And when we go to Imola in 2 weeks' time, do you think the field will be closer, or do you think, all things being equal, it'll be another race between Max and Checo?
Well, I don't know really. I mean, we only have to hope and keep working at all the teams just to make sure that they close the gap to Red Bull. What is incredible about Red Bull is with all the limitations they have on their development, on the times in the wind tunnel, on the CFD, that they're still the fastest, and they keep developing the car more than any other team, or you know, at least that's what the differences show.
Are you feeling that that's the case this year?
Well,
even with all of those limitations, they're still developing the car quicker than anyone else.
I mean, the results prove me right. You know, I mean, they went to Baku, they brought upgrades, they worked, they kept the distance. If in fact they open up a bit the differences. I mean, it's impressive having all the limitations, but it just proves what a great team they are.
Well, Pedro, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. You look like you've enjoyed Miami. What's next for you?
Well, my plan now is I go back to Spain, and then I will be not in Imola, possibly Monaco a few days, but on a bit of a holiday. And then I'll be back in Barcelona in the Spanish Grand Prix. Obviously, I'll be there.
Home race. It's going to be mega, that, isn't it?
I mean, the expectation of this of the whole Spain is unreal. I mean, having Carlos, having Fernando up there fighting for a podium. I mean, today was a fantastic race for Spain as well, you know. I mean, it was incredible. There's a big hype, you know, in Formula One now in Spain with this fight.
All right, Pedro, thanks for your time. See you soon. See you in Spain.
See you.
So here's how they finished. Max Verstappen took his second consecutive win in Miami, win number 38 of his Formula One career. Teammate Sergio Perez was second, and Fernando Alonso made it his fourth podium in 5 races in this 2023 season. In fourth place, George Russell. Fifth came the lead Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, despite that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pits. In sixth was Lewis Hamilton. Seventh was Charles Leclerc, started seventh, finished seventh. Then came the 2 Alpines of Pierre Gasly 8th, Esteban Ocon 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was Kevin Magnussen. In the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen has extended his lead at the top to 14 points over his teammate Sergio Perez. In third comes Fernando Alonso on 75 points, already 30 points behind Sergio Perez. In fourth is the lead Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton on 56. Then comes the lead Ferrari of Carlos Sainz on 44 points. George Russell is 6th on 40 points, with Charles Leclerc 7th on 34. Then comes the second Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll in 8th, Lando Norris is 9th, and Pierre Gasly is 10th on 8. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull are sitting pretty at the top on 224 points, with Aston Martin second on 102. But it's very tight behind. Mercedes just 6 points behind Aston now in third place, with Ferrari fourth, just 18 points behind Mercedes. In fifth, a McLaren on 14, now equal with Alpine, also on 14. Haas are 7th with 8 points, Alfa Romeo 8th, AlphaTauri 9th, and Williams are 10th with 1 point. Well, that's how the real championships are standing. Let's now check in with our F1 Fantasy League. Our drivers for F1 Nation Racing this weekend were Verstappen, Alonso, Russell, Piastri and Yuki Tsunoda. And our constructors were Red Bull and Aston Martin. So no points for Piastri and Tsunoda, but Verstappen, Alonso and Russell will make up for that. Now, remember, you can join our league at any time to compete against us and other listeners. Just search for the F1 Nation World Championship. And if you're not playing yet, it's not too late to join. It's totally free. Just search online for F1 Fantasy to sign up. Then choose your constructors and drivers using a $100 million budget. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Monday with our preview to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. And in the meantime, you can listen to our next episode of F1 Beyond the Grid with former BMW team principal Mario Tyson. That comes out on Wednesday. Just search for Beyond the Grid on your podcast app. But for now, from us here at F1 Nation, to Pedro, to Eric, thank you very much for your help. F1 Nation is produced by F1 and Audioboom Studios.